There is a silence that does not arise from fear. There is a silence that does not come from ignorance, nor from indifference. There is a silence that is more powerful than speech, more radiant than scripture, more tender than even the most eloquent prayer. This is the silence of the awakened. It is said that one morning, before the light broke over the Himalayas, a seeker traveled far across burning plains and broken forests to kneel before two great men. One was seated beneath a tree in stillness, the Buddha. The other walked among fishermen and olive groves, Jesus, son of Mary. To both, the seeker asked the same question. "Tell me, teacher, what is God?" And Jesus, whose words danced like fire and shadow, replied in parables. He spoke of seeds and vineyards, of lamps on hills and coins lost and found. He said, "The kingdom of God is within you." And then he left the seeker with more questions than answers. But the fire had been lit. The seeker turned to the Buddha, who met the question with eyes vast as the sky. But the Buddha did not speak, not a single word. He simply looked into the heart of the seeker. And in that gaze, the world fell away. The question dissolved, and in the absence of sound, something unspeakable began to stir. Why did one speak in metaphor and the other in silence? Why did one give stories while the other gave stillness? To begin to understand, we must leave the realm of answers. We must begin where all seeking begins, not in the pages of books or the words of sages, but in the tension of the heart that cannot rest. When Siddhartha Gautama left the palace, he did not go searching for doctrines or names. He went searching for cessation. He had seen the sickness of the world, the aging body, the corpse that no perfume could cleanse. He had seen the illusion of pleasure, the disappointment of grasping, the thirst that no wine could quench. And so he sought something beyond, not in the heavens, not in rituals, but in the mind itself. The Buddha did not ask, "What is God?" He asked, "What is suffering? What is the origin of this suffering? Is there a way out? What path leads to the end?" These are not divine questions. They are human questions, and in them lies the seed of every liberation. The silence of the Buddha is not the silence of someone who has no reply. It is the silence of one who has gone beyond the need to reply, who sees that to speak is sometimes to miss, and that the deepest truths cannot be carried on the tongue, but must be walked with the feet, breathed with the body, burned into the soul through practice. When a monk once asked the Buddha about the nature of the cosmos, the beginning of the world, the identity of the self, the Buddha remained silent. Later he spoke, not to explain those things, but to say why he would not. He said, "It is as if a man is struck by a poisoned arrow, and he refuses to have it removed until he knows who shot it, what caste he is, where he trained, and what the arrow is made of. If he waits for all the answers, he will die first. So it is with us. We are pierced by desire, by delusion, by ego and fear, and yet we debate the stars." The Buddha's silence was not an evasion. It was a compass, pointing not outward to the heavens, but inward to this breath, to this body, to this thought, to this moment, this suffering, this liberation. In a village not far from where he taught, the Buddha once lifted a single flower. He said nothing, only smiled. Only one of his disciples, Mahakashapa, understood, and in that wordless transmission, Zen was. Truth did not need to be taught. It only needed to be seen. We live in a world obsessed with language, drenched in commentary, choking on definitions. We name the divine in 1,000 tongues. Yahweh, Allah, Brahman, but the name is not the thing. The finger is not the moon. And so the Buddha turned inward, so that we might do the same. And yet return with me now to that imagined moment. The seeker, torn between the poetry of Christ and the silence of the Buddha, sits trembling. "Why do you not answer me?" The seeker pleads. The Buddha watches a leaf fall from the Bodhi tree. It spins once in the air and lands. What need for answers when the truth is falling all around you? The kingdom of God, said Jesus, is within you. The unconditioned, said the Buddha, is here, beyond birth, beyond death. Both pointed inward, one with stories, the other with stillness. We must now follow them, not by repeating their words, but by living into the space between them, the space where awakening begins. When the mind is still, the truth reveals itself, not as a voice from the sky, not as an image in a burning bush, but as the quiet recognition. I am not what I thought I was. Not the body, not the thought, not the name or the womb. This is the beginning of seeing, and from seeing comes clarity. From clarity, the great unraveling. In the teachings of the Buddha, belief was never the end. It was the beginning, an invitation to test, to examine, to look directly. He said, "Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down. But when, after observation and analysis, you find that something agrees with reason and is conducive to the good, then accept it." This is not faith in doctrine. This is faith in one's own capacity to awaken. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, you will be known." Again, the call is inward, not to worship, but to wake up. The Buddha, too, called this inward turning yoniso manasikara, wise attention, the discipline of looking beneath appearances, beyond the surface of things, to the arising and passing of phenomena. He said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. And so we learn to watch the mind." There is a discipline in this path that is not glamorous. No robes of gold, no miracles, only the slow dismantling of illusion. Each breath, a gate. Each step, a question. Each silence, a mirror. We begin to ask not what is God, but what am I clinging to? Where is the self I keep defending? Who suffers, and who observes the suffering? These are not easy questions. They are not answered in a single sitting. They are not resolved in debate or won in argument. They are burned into the bones through meditation, mindfulness, and relentless compassion. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha outlines the foundations of mindfulness, not to lead us to belief, but to lead us to direct seeing. Mindfulness of the body of breath, posture decay, mindfulness of feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Mindfulness of mind states, anger, lust, delusion. Mindfulness of dhammas, mental processes, hindrances, truths. These are not mystical teachings. They are surgical. They cut through confusion, because when we see clearly, belief falls away like old skin, and what is left is knowing, not knowledge, but knowing being. And now, return with me again to the seeker. He sits in the space between silence and parable, between the still Buddha and the storytelling Christ. And he asks, what am I to do with this silence, with this flood of metaphors and this ocean of stillness? Which is the way? And suddenly, the seeker realizes there is no path between them. There is only the path within himself. For the parables were never meant to point outward, and the silence was never meant to leave him empty. Both were mirrors. Both were calling him to listen, not with ears, but with the whole of his being. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. And what is the word that brings peace? Sometimes it is no word at all. There is power in silence because it cannot be distorted, because it waits, because it does not chase approval, because it honors the mystery. The modern mind, addicted to noise and opinion, finds this unbearable. We crave certainty. We hunger for labels, for sides, for conclusions. But the awakened mind rests in not knowing, not because it is confused, but because it has gone beyond the need to define. The Buddha said, there is an unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed. Were it not for this unborn, there would be no escape from the born. Originated, created, and this is not a place. It is not a deity. It is a freedom from fabrication. So the work becomes not to ascend to heaven, but to see through illusion, to peel away the aggregates the skin does, form, feeling, perception, each one a thread, each one clung to by the ego, each one dissolvable. When we see them arise and fall, moment after moment, what remains? Not a soul, not a name, not a person, just the vast, open knowing, just awareness itself. And in that, the peace that surpasses understanding. Jesus too said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." But the Buddha might say, "Blessed are the clear in mind, for they shall see the end of suffering." Is it the same? Perhaps. Perhaps not. But what matters is not the comparison. What matters is the invitation to purify the heart, to still the mind, to meet reality without veil. This is not theology. This is transformation. And it begins in silence. There is a silence that teaches, a silence that does not merely withhold speech, but unveils the source of all speech. When the seeker sat between the Buddha and the Christ, he did not yet realize that he was not truly listening. He was still waiting for words, still hoping for answers to descend like thunderbolts from the clouds. But awakening does not come like lightning. It arrives like dew, soft, unseen, inevitable. In the monastery halls, it is said that the sound of a bell is not meant to fill the ear. It is meant to stop the mind, to bring the whole being back to the present, where nothing needs to be said, because everything is already speaking. The Buddha once told his disciples, "The wise do not delight in words. They delight in silence. They see the world as a bubble, a mirage. They go beyond and leave no trace." What is the mind like when it leaves no trace? It is like the surface of a still lake. Before the wind of thought, before the stone of desire is thrown, it reflects everything, clings to nothing, hides nothing. In our modern thirst for identity, we speak of vision, of purpose, of destiny. But the Buddha spoke of right view, not as a belief system, but as a lens through which to see life as it is. Right view does not give you a story to cling to. It takes stories away. It says, all things are impermanent. All things are not self. All things are unsatisfactory. And this is not pessimism. It is liberation. For when we see clearly that no moment can be held, we stop grasping. When we see that the I we defend is only a process, we stop clinging. And we see that pleasure cannot last and pain cannot be avoided, we stop running. And what is left when we stop running? Stillness, presence, peace. Jesus told the rich man, "Go, sell all you have, give to the poor, and follow me." He was not offering poverty as virtue. He was offering freedom from attachment. The Buddha said, "Let go of what is not yours." And what is not yours? Everything you cannot hold on to. Your body, your reputation, your beliefs, even your very sense of self. Let it go and walk. This is the path, not a path of possession, but of relinquishment. And that is where discipline becomes sacred. Discipline is not the cage, it is the key. When the mind is trained, it becomes a friend. When the body is mindful, it becomes a temple. When speech is measured, it becomes an offering. When action is intentional, it becomes compassion. The Noble Eightfold Path, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, is not a moral code. It is a way of being that leads to clarity, to freedom, to peace that cannot be taken. And each step is born from silence. For in silence we observe, and in observation we choose. The seeker, now years into his journey, returns to the question, not out of doubt, but from a deeper longing. He kneels once more at the edge of a forest. The Buddha is gone, the Christ is gone, but the silence remains. He asks the question one final time, is there a God? And the question falls into the air like incense, fragrant and fading. And from within the silence he hears not an answer, but a reflection. Who is asking? And he sits, and watches, and breathes, and the eye dissolves, and the question fades, and something vast, open, not a presence to be named, but an intimacy too sacred for names. This is the heart of gratitude, not thanking some outer deity for blessings received, but bowing before the miracle of this breath, this moment, this chance to awaken. Gratitude is the fruit of presence. It cannot be forced. It cannot be performed. It arises when the mind is no longer clinging to what should be, but has surrendered to what is. The Buddha taught monks to contemplate death every day, not to dwell in sorrow, but to remember the preciousness of time, to live deliberately, to love generously, to release easily. From gratitude flows resilience, the ability to stay upright amidst impermanence. The lotus rises from the mud not in spite of it, but because of it. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. The Buddha said, develop a mind like the earth. Upon it the pure and impure are cast, yet it remains unmoved. The awakened do not escape suffering. They transcend its grip. When Mara, the tempter, the shadow appeared before the Buddha, he did not fight. He said, I see you, Mara, and he sat. Recognition without resistance. Presence without panic. This is how one becomes unshakable. And what of adaptability? When the storm comes, the rigid tree breaks, the bamboo bends, the river flows around stone. The path is not walked in a straight line. There are detours, falls, forgetting, and returning. But each return deepens the vow. Each fall humbles the ego. Each tear waters the seed of compassion. The Dhammapada says, however many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them? So act, not for reward, not for perfection, but for awakening. And as the seeker walks the path, no longer seeking answers but embodying the question, he comes to know the final truth, that all teaching points beyond itself, that all silence speaks, that all awakening is a return to what was always here. The mountain does not shout to be seen. The ocean does not declare its depth. The sun does not boast of its rising. So it is with the awakened mind. It simply is in the quietude of mindfulness, where thoughts dissolve like morning mist. We begin to see that learning is not the accumulation of truths, but the shedding of illusion. The Buddha did not ask us to worship him. He said, be a lamp unto yourselves. Work out your own salvation with diligence. This was not a command. It was a liberation. It meant that no priest, no prophet, no path could take the place of one's own seeing. To learn in the Dharma is to unlearn what you are not. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus speaks again. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. And the Buddha would nod in his stillness, for he knew this too, that the path to freedom does not lie in another's words, but in the deep excavation of the heart. Awakening is not a destination. It is not the end of pain. It is the end of delusion. To awaken is to see things as they truly are, transient, impersonal, empty of fixed essence, yet luminous, vivid, and full of wonder. It is to drink from the present moment like a wellspring and find it enough. The seeker, now aged with time, no longer speaks of God, not because he has rejected the question, but because he has lived it. In the song of birds, he hears the teachings. In the stillness of dawn, he meets the Master. In the breath, rising and falling, he sees the mystery that words could never touch. He no longer needs to sit beneath a tree or kneel before a cross. The sacred has come home to him, and he to it. Let us return one final time to the moment long ago when the seeker asked, "What is God?" Jesus answered in metaphor. The Buddha answered in silence. Both gave him what he needed. For some, the parable awakens the heart. For others, the silence shatters the mind. Both are doors, and the door is never the point. It is the stepping through that matters. And so now, dear listener, you are the seeker, and the question lives within you. Do not rush to answer it. Do not fear the silence. Sit with it, breathe into it. Let it hollow you out until all that remains is presence. From there, walk one breath, one step, one surrender at a time. Let the teachings of the Buddha guide your seeing. Let the compassion of Christ soften your being. Let the silence between their words become the space in which you awaken. You do not need to find God. You need to lose what keeps you from seeing. You do not need to rise to the heavens. You need to descend into presence. You do not need to be saved. You need to be still. When the Buddha was asked about the divine, he did not speak, because silence was the only truth that could not be distorted. When Jesus was asked, he spoke in riddles, because riddles awaken the part of us that listens with the soul. In silence, you will meet yourself.
In stillness, you will meet the world.
In the space between thought and breath, you will meet the great unnameable mystery that neither confirms nor denies, but only calls you home. May you walk this path with grace. May you awaken from the dream, and may your silence become your teacher.